Welcome to episode 12 of the podcast. And last week we talked all about training your back. And we were going to do back and legs, but somehow we had 60 minutes of back content within us. So we're doing a separate episode today all about how to train your legs effectively. So that's, I think we can jump right into it, since I think we'll probably have even more to say with legs.
Yeah, we'll see.
Although I don't know, back was juicy. Back was juicy.
There's just more parts to the back. I think legs are bigger individual muscles, I think.
We've got calves, we've got adductors.
Yeah, I suppose adductors.
Glutes, all three of them.
Glutes.
Hammies, all three of them.
People never really train.
Yeah.
At least back guys, even guys train it, even if it's badly. There's some sort of back training, even if you're missing angles, you're trying. But leg, it's like one of those. Some people just throw it in just as a by the way. So
really, I would say. Well, I guess women train.
Lower
body more
than
maybe than some guys who are just sort of every day's chest day, and
then one day is 20 minutes of half-ass legs, so we'll see.
So I guess we'll follow a similar-ish format to the last one. We'll talk through anatomy a little bit, exercise selection, and then how to go about setting up your training split, if that's full body push-pull legs or an upper-lower split, depending, and again, depending like which part you want to grow, will take you through all of that. And Leon has brought up his little anatomy thing up again.
Any reason to open that up?
Exactly.
Yeah, their legs are amazing. And again, like when you're super, super lean, not that I've ever been there, but when you can see like all the quad muscles, that's pretty cool.
It's one of when the quad looks shrink wrapped, it's pretty cool.
Wow, especially that nice teardrop. Oh, juicy quads. Yeah, so I guess anatomy, there are a lot going on in your legs. You've got your calf muscles, and I mean,
you've got your psoas as well.
You've got your psoas.
You've got all sorts going on there.
And the gastrocnemius, and I find like calves, they look so different on different people. Like mine are really long and have like a nice juicy like heart-shaped calf. It's just quite long. And Leon's, yours are really high.
Very. It's bad ones for competitive bodybuilding.
Well, I got long ones, but I actually prefer slightly somewhere in the middle for calves.
Yeah, where they,
because if they're too high, they look nice, but it's all at the top. If they're too long, they look very elongated, very square.
Yeah.
In the middle, where it starts going out in the middle's better. So
where you can see them from front and back.
Yeah.
Nice. Yeah, no, nice calves. Like I think because a lot of women wear high heels, they have really nice calves.
Yeah, generally women have better calves than men. The men with the best calves, the guys that are overweight for some reason. It's just walking around with extra weight all day.
Yeah, and then you just have that really nice little.
I call it. It's like white people genetics also.
My old brother's got great calves. He doesn't do any.
Oh, bad luck.
I know, it's very.
You try so hard.
Yeah.
I don't train my calves. They're all right.
Yeah, I have a client who's the same. He just golfs, bikes.
Biking is good.
Yeah, but he's never like gone
out of his way to train his calves.
Never.
And that's what's annoying, because if you can spend all your time. Like my calves are big, but they go further back.
Yeah.
Mine don't go out to the sides; they just keep getting deeper and deeper.
Yeah, now he's the like full on bodybuilder style. He's like hockey, biking, and the first thing I remember, first session we started with, maybe and I was like, dude, you have such nice calves, and he's like, yeah, I kind of get that, but I don't know what my head.
I knew a guy, my mate's dad, who I played rugby with, John Ricketts. He was a great rugby player, as well. He had calves almost the size of most people's quads. They were ridiculous. But he used to get, when we cramped up though, it was like a game finisher for him. They were massive.
Calf cramp. I had that once during swimming training. The worst.
Yeah, I guess I usually say it's just one of the muscles, even more than quads, even back, I think, where it takes a long time for you to figure out what really works for your calves. Because it's like, are you high volume? Are you, heavier weight? And I've tried all of them, but I've reached that point, I'm like, I'll just do everything. So whichever works. But I find when it comes to legs, it's one of those muscles that take long for you to figure out.
But like, it's everyone's different. I think that's generally the case for the legs. It's, whatever you're growing in your legs, you've got to try and change up if you're not getting growth, change it up. I get the most now out doing more volume on my legs. Just a little bit more volume, less exercises, more volume on those exercises. Only because, I feel it more, and then I feel we grow better from that.
Yeah.
And maybe it's just because, growing up, I ran my first marathon at 17, so my legs are used to, been sporty. I think they're used to a lot of endurance. So therefore, when I try to do shorter volume, slightly less volume, they don't seem to retire quickly, like high weight, less volume, but they don't seem to grow any. They don't seem to grow at the same rate. It's doing a little bit more volume.
Yeah. I notice for me it's the soleus. I don't know. I feel most calf, unless the seated one sometimes, but I find like my soleus just takes all the weight, even if I change angles. And I don't know, maybe that's why they just don't grow as big as I'd like, but yeah. It's one thing I know my soleus takes.
Well, the thing is, my calves are way bigger than my arms, which is annoying.
That's good.
It's like ridiculous. But we don't look it like it's just because they're so deep. It's like, it's like putting on trousers is a pain. They're like very wide back. We just keep going back. And it is annoying because I'm like, well, can we just sort of push you out to the side a little bit?
Yeah,
just it down, just so it goes a bit more like big heart shape. But
yeah.
I have to start walking around in high heels.
Well, yeah, go for it, Andy.
Well, that's the thing is, there must be something to that because a lot of women, you see women in high heels, their calves are like pow, and you're like, years of walking in high heels is very much a lot of reps, a lot of.
It's like a continuous iso hold.
Exactly, and maybe that's it. That's the secret.
Just
iso hold calves.
And most women don't want big calves, so I think that's quite ironic. Anyway, so then I guess not many people train the tibialis anterior. That's the sort of front muscle on your shin.
Kai Green, when I was growing up, younger, not growing up, but younger, Kai Green, I watched a training video of Kai Green and he was training it. So I used to train it as well. And it's not one you necessarily need to train. Mine's quite good. And I think mine was always good from playing sport and stuff, but because it's all to do with, helping with ankle flexion. But I did see Kai Green training it. He was like, well, it's a muscle, I'll train it. So I do, but most people don't. And I don't think most people, if you're, unless you're bodybuilding, I don't think anyone really cares.
No, and I don't think, and unless you're doing it for some kind of rehab or something. But exactly.
Yeah, no, I'm just thinking because even fighters who kick a lot, you don't really see them train it. So
well, I mean, it's
one more thing to bruise as a fighter, I think.
Yeah.
Well, then going up into your quads, you got 4 of them. And I think it's the biceps femoris, it crosses the hip and the knee joint. So, and we'll get into it, like for a lot of the muscles, you want to train them in their lengthened and shortened positions. And then hamstrings, you got 3 of them. Going into glutes, again, 3 main ones. You've got glute max, glute medium, glute medius and glute minimus. And then your adductors, they've got some cool names. And I think we can probably dwell on those a bit because I think a lot of people don't train them. And they're really important. I mean, let alone for aesthetics, but just for, just overall sort of balance in your legs. Having strong adductors, I think is really important. I guess those are the main ones. Have I missed any?
Yeah.
Main ones?
And there's loads of little ones. I mean, like the sort of things people just don't think of. Like, there's loads of them, Gracilis, Sartorius, Spinosaurus, Iliacus.
Yeah, and I mean, there's, I mean, you've got your, not that you're training it, but that's quite important is like your ITB band, iliotibial band, and the TFL, which is really important because that's where our runners often run into a lot of issues, or a lot of people do when glutes aren't as strong as they need to be. Then you get the TFL getting tight, pulling on that ITB band, and then you get all sorts of issues. So there's lots of fascia and everything. I mean, that truly is another topic, and we have talked about fascia with Olivia. I think that was a long time ago, but worth going back to listen because fascia is incredible. But we're not talking about fascia. Shall we talk about splits first and then exercise selection?
I think I'm not someone who goes to, as some people want to get down to and split out their hamstrings and quads, and I actually tend to do all legs in a day and then twice a week, and I would do it general, because I do sort of push pull lower. With that lower though, I will choose one to prioritize, say, quads, and the second one to prioritize hamstrings and glutes and adductors. So it's normally quads and adductors, hamstrings and glutes as a priority, and both have calves. And they are my longer sessions because there's a lot more muscles.
There's a lot to go through in a leg day. I mean, I would agree with you there. Like, I don't do like quad day or hamstring day, and it will depend on your split. But if you're doing it twice a week, I think that's a good way to do that. And again, you remember from last week, like whatever you're wanting to prioritize, just start with that. And like I'm doing a full body split, so on 2 of the days I'll start with lower body and do sort of lower rep ranges, and then on one day I'll end with lower body and do slightly higher rep ranges, and then like one of the days it will be more of a quad focus, and the other day it'll be more glutes and hamstring focus. And then if you've got push-pull legs, you'll get and again, depends how you do that, because if you could be doing deadlifts on pull day, you'll be getting in some extra volume there.
That's the thing. It's also, looking at your whole week split. If you've got like, RDLs or deadlift in a pull day, you shouldn't then be going straight into a leg hamstring, a full leg with hamstring elements and hip hinge elements, because when you just go doubling up. That's why all my hip hinging I keep for leg day. Generally, there is obviously I like to do a bent over barbell row. That's why I probably prefer the chest support T-bar row, because then I'm not having to lock out the hips the same way as if you're doing a barbell and over barbell row. So I think that's important when you're looking at your week. If you are someone who loves doing your deadlifts and you want to keep them in, make sure there's a rest day, or there's enough rest between. Maybe start with your lower, and then finish with your pull, and have 1 or 2 rest days in between the next. Block.
I use which I learned from JP, And it's before and after legs, always have a rest. Like, and I find that works for me because I do hamstring, or let's just say deadlifts, like hinging on pull days. And, the rows and pull downs all on the same day. So it can be taxing. So after that, I also try rest. So after pull day, I'll rest, but also before and after leg day is a rest for me, where on leg days, I don't do any hinging movements or any just erect intensive movements. And it depends, because that's when I'm doing like a pull push legs. But when I'm doing upper lower, I will keep my deadlifts on leg days. So there's just enough rest between the two.
I've done that as well. Had a rest day either side of the legs for myself, and I quite enjoy that. Especially when you're bringing up legs. I think it's quite a good one to maximize them, and maybe have some refeeds around that if you're in a deficit. But you've got weak legs. I would then look to do refeed before and refeed after.
Yeah.
Just and then we'll go low the other calories the other times. But legs, because everyone, if you ask about DOMs, the DOMs that seem to hang around for the longest time are the legs, and it's, people work really hard. The people who do work legs tend to go ham. The guys who don't really work legs, they're just like, no, they just don't work them, so it's not a thing. But when you meet someone who goes, "Oh yeah, I love squatting," there's a habit of going almost too hard.
Oh yeah.
And therefore, without having those rest days either side, you're just digging yourself into a hole that you may not be able to recover out of.
Yeah, very true. I would say though, if you're looking to grow your legs, like at least 2 sessions a week. It's like people who do push-pull legs and only get like 1 leg session in, especially if you're not doing like deadlifts in a pull, that's not going to be enough. You just can't get in enough volume on.
And, you don't necessarily need to do push-pull leg. I would probably do it, legs, push-pull, rest, then legs again. But as I do with a lot of my class, beginning of the week you do your push-pull legs, rest day when you do upper lower. Rest day.
That was a good one. I remember doing that, and again, like I remember one program. It was like legs 3 times a week, and I just could never recover.
So that's the thing with like a lot of wellness athletes.
Yeah,
that's what they do, but they will do it maybe 1 upper day for the whole week, but then it's train off. So legs, it'd be legs off, legs off. So the last legs you pair with an upper. So you do following upper, so you have them day off. So it's
that can work. And often, like one of those days will be probably, I would say, like a higher volume day, like high reps. And I mean, but still, you have to program that pretty carefully.
Yeah, I think with wellness, you can get away with separating your quad and glute days because you're training your legs all week.
Then you'd be okay. But I wouldn't be able to.
Exactly, and it's a very specific. That's a very specific thing. It's not the sort of thing people should be doing unless you're aiming just to do wellness. Some horse legs.
Exactly.
And I guess that's why also same case goes for people with like weaker legs. It's Monday, Tuesday, when it's like chest, arms, everything you're doing is upper, and then one measly day for legs, and it's like
exactly. Frequency's just not there. And then that's the thing. Like that's the problem with the pro split is that it you do more upper because you're breaking it down and less legs. And then so it's all right if you've got good legs, but if you don't, that should be you need. That's why push pull legs or even upper lower splits work really well for legs.
Because
you get a bit more frequency. Because you can do lower upper rest, lower upper, and throw another lower in if you want to split the last 2 into hamstrings and quads.
If you split it, then I think that would work.
Because it's a bit sad, how the body is take 3D, and then you cut it in half back and front. People tend to look at upper like that. Like you have your back day, triceps, and then chest day, your push. And then when it comes to legs, it's just cut across. It's like legs. I'll just cramp everything into it because it's hard. Throw in a bit of hamstrings instead
This
of
is the thing. I think a lot of people don't understand. The point you're making here is, with legs, people just think, just throw the kitchen sink at it in one session and it's fine. Right? But the fact is, a lot of people spend a lot of time doing either isolation or just focusing on something like squatting, thinking, oh, I do squat, but I hit every bit in my leg. Well, no, not necessarily, depending on how you squat. And this is what people don't realize. They're like, oh, I'm just going to do squats because that target all my legs.
Yeah, 10
just do, pretty much just session squats, yeah. And maybe do some leg extensions. Yeah, to get a pump at the end. Right? And as you say, we can joke about it because it is so common.
Yeah.
But the reality is, unless what type of squatter you are, unless you're a perfect squatter, you probably won't be hitting every bit of your leg equally.
No, and then again, like it was the single beating, like the adductors are so important, like trying to hit those. Sometimes there just like isn't time in one session to get everything. So I really think like that twice a week is really good. And then you can, if quads are your focus, you can begin each of those, with a quad movement, or if glutes and hammies are your focus, you begin with those. I was going to say something and I've forgotten. Oh yes, single leg movements. Most people do not like those, but I think they are so effective. And I did quite a long time without doing any barbell back squats, but I did a lot of rear foot elevated split squats. Didn't lose any strength in the barbell.
I do a lot of split squats. I do a lot of, in my programming for people, a lot of split squats, a lot of Bulgarian split squats. Even myself, I prefer doing things like single leg extensions rather than double leg extensions, because where I've got one knee's worse than the other, I don't want my better leg to, I don't call it good leg, better leg to take the strength. And when I do both,
it will.
You can notice the difference. It will. It's just automatic, So I
so
prefer to do that.
For imbalances, to do those. And like maybe I'm weird, but I can reverse lunge more than I can squat happily. Like a squat just mentally for me, no, but a heavy reverse.
That's the thing. It's because of the way your body's built, the way you squat. It can be massively different. Change. I used to be able to squat lots of weight, but I'm a massive back squatter. I squat like a power lifter, which isn't building any quads really. I fold like at my hip. It's a giant hip hinge. And that's why if I am squatting, I have to heel elevate.
Yeah,
it's not which is also another, maybe we'll talk about. It's like one of those things people find like it's bad, but heel elevation is it's like another tool. It's like using straps for deadlifts. You're building muscle. It's like
I just think they can't be asked.
Yeah, it's one of those
to set it up. Or buy wedges.
You can just put small plates.
I always say 2.5 kg plates, perfect.
And it
makes such a difference.
It does.
I would say like you're a good squatter, but if you just see the angle of when you elevate your heels, it's amazing. It really makes that difference.
But the knee just comes further forward, and if you've got I don't have the best ankle mobility. It's okay. It's been worse. I've actually worked on it a lot over the years. But because of the way I squatted for years before working on my ankle mobility, it's very almost a set path of movement in my mind. So if I don't heel elevate, I don't get that extra ankle mobility and get that knee moving forward enough. And so, I very rarely squat, to be honest, nowadays. Not, only because I'll only ever heel elevate squat. And I like to do it. I tend to, it's probably because my knees are bad. I tend to do it in a Smith machine now more than a free weight one, just in case anything goes wrong. But I've always had pretty decent legs, and that's from rugby, I think, more than anything. So I think for me, I worked out that squatting conventionally I wasn't getting enough benefit from it. Like, mainly back in glutes and, hamstrings a little bit, but mainly probably it's all in the hip hinge. So a bit of hamstring, bit of glute. And I've got better hip hinge movements to do. I love doing an RDL from a hip hinge.
Yeah, exactly. You wouldn't do a squat for a hip hinge.
No.
And that's the thing, you find most people can't engage the squat very well just because of like ankle mobility and
100%.
Or
think
shoulder
it's something else.
mobility.
Yeah. Or even, yeah.
Squatting is
Even holding the bar there is,
advanced, and it's
So
it's
many
for your
variations.
legs. I mean, we guess we're going into exercise selection now, but I think it's so important to know your body and like know your, just certain ratios. Like some people with really long femurs, they don't squat well, and just really understand what works for you, and then I guess we'll go into it, but utilizing machines, free weights, and specialty bars, and then adding in things like your wedges, it can really change the game for you, of building your legs. So
Yeah.
well, I think we're talking about quads anyway, so like top quad exercises, and it's
Squat
not necessarily
variation.
a squat.
But it's the same. It's why, because everyone asks me, oh, why don't you use a barbell for back squat? Things. Why do you heel elevate? I'm like, it's not because I can do it like very well. My mobility, everything, but I'm trying to hit a certain muscle as best as I can. So it's just simple tools like the safety squat bar just keeps me in a nice.
That's a great.
It's like doing a goblet in a way, but it just keeps keeps me from thinking about my shoulders. If you can say that.
If you've got bad mobility in your shoulders,
you're not going to enjoy a squat.
Try that.
Yeah, and it's one of those just using simple tools to help you.
The only problem with the safety squat bar is people think it's going to weigh the same as a normal bar.
Yeah, it's.
They put the same amount of weight on them. We go lift it. We're like, whoa.
I've done
so
that.
heavy.
It's quite something. I haven't used like a barbell for ages. I've always used the safety bar, and like at the moment, what I do, are just those safety bar sit squats. I find those are a really great variation, especially during pregnancy. It's just you've got that stability there. If you need a little rest at the bottom, you can take it. But it is a good one. It's not necessarily like the best quad builder, because I find for quads, like you really want to go into that knee flexion, knee over toe. But it's just good for overall strength in your legs there. And it can, because you're not going so low, it can be good for the glutes. But yeah, I do that's what I'm currently doing, but more so just because of pregnancy, and I feel safer doing that than without the bench there.
One thing is I like to do with just having a conversation. I was doing someone's checking feedback last night, and we were talking about, because there was no leg press at a gym, so we asked if they could put in squats. So let's do squats. And so we've gone to heel elevate. You go, okay, so I want to work on my depth and stuff. So I said, look, let's strip it right back. Start off maybe with a box squat.
Yeah.
But find a slightly low. If you've got a slightly lower bench in the gym, start with that one, and just start there, and then do a couple of weeks using the bench, then remove it, and then you should feel a bit more confident, and to keep your heels elevated.
Yeah.
Because I think the box squat's actually a great exercise for one, building confidence, especially for people fresh into the gym.
Yep.
Building confidence with that squat, working on patterns of movement. Because try to explain to someone, squatting is, I think you're sitting down. You're like,
sit, but don't.
Like if you want to lift a lot of weight, you can fold like a scissor lift.
Yeah.
But it's not going to target your quads as much, because every bit of your body's folding. So if we're targeting your quads, let's think about actually sitting down into squat.
No,
and then go from there.
I agree. I do that with a lot of beginners. But even if you aren't a beginner,
no, this guy's not a beginner.
Yeah, be a good one to just put back in, and just if you are a bit nervous of squats, such a good one to do. But again, like if you are thinking more quad, you know, really look at in that heel elevation. You can get wedges. You can get them made. We have a good fundi. If you want one, let us know. Or like Andy said, just get the 2.5 kilo plates. They're so good. But I prefer like 2 individual plates rather than one.
Yeah.
Because then you can really optimize your squat stance position, which is also quite key.
Yeah.
And some people prefer it wider. I'm actually I have quite a narrow stance in my squat. So, you know, there's so much to play with a squat.
The only thing is, once you start getting wider, you start hitting your adductors in the squat. And I've seen actually majority of torn adductors from doing really wide, heavy squats. Just straight out going like, you know, I'm just gonna not even a sumo squat where they're like expecting it with really wide, but just like slightly too wide for the bar path. And you know, I've seen it a couple of times where you're like, well, you know, you kind of
it's just not.
You hadn't prepped your body for it. You had, you know, like so most people get like with me when I'm going into the gym to do legs. I use and say we're looking at quad focus. I'll still start with hamstring curl and knee extensions generally to pre-exhaust a little bit, so I don't have to go crazy heavy on any sort of squatting movement or leg press. And with that, but a lot of people I see might just go straight to the rack. You know, I like to make sure my knees are full of blood and they're warmed up and synovial fluid's nice and, you know, fluid.
So important. I think that, and those are 2 easy exercises to do. If you don't have access to them, there's
dumbbell for hamstring curls.
Yeah, dumbbell, or even just like an elevated bridge, but more of a hamstring focus. I like single leg step downs, Swiss ball curls.
Swiss ball curls is good.
Just get high reps.
And there's lots of activation as well you can do. Even when you first get to gym, just almost walking to the machine, you can actually do a body weight lunge all the way to the rack, you know, and start thinking about, you know, walking, lunging with no weight, just nice and easy.
I used to like that. Like when you remember Trojan, there was like the lane between the weights and we did that with Harry a lot. Just walk, lunge, you know, 10.
Body weight is great.
Yeah, just body weight, just warm up.
Yeah. But I think before heavy squats, heavy deadlifts, like do something. And you know, even like some adductor work, I think can be really good beforehand.
I agree. I do think actually I like to do a lot of the isolations early on just as a warm up.
Yeah.
You know, things like adductors, you know, again, as I say, you see people tear because they never warm their adductors. They might at most, and quads might be, you know, warmed up from the 10 minutes they spent on walking on a treadmill or something, but they're not, you know, warmed everything else, and that's why things tear.
Yeah, it's the one machine I really miss. It's a bit silly buying it, you know, on its own, because it's adductor, hip adduction and abduction, and it's like you're thinking, is it, you know, it's not really worth it if you're on a sort of budget, like
sadly
or home gym.
Other stuff
but
it is useful.
If you can access it in the gym, I find just
don't neglect
starting with
it.
that.
It's not just for chicks.
Half the problem is that's half the problem is trying to get on one. There's only a queue of women, and that's all they do. It's like
IG doing, you know, glute abduction.
Yeah, it's like and they're always doing the abduction.
Never
you know, which is like almost the most pointless bit of the whole workout. But
it's funny. But if you can do it, or Copenhagen planks are good. We used to have like that Pilates wheel. That's actually quite good.
Yeah.
Or even just if you have a slam ball, you can squeeze it between your legs.
Yeah.
There's lots of stuff to do.
I've just been doing side lunges too.
Side lunges are amazing.
Side lunges, exactly. Body weight sumos.
Oh yeah.
Warm up. I do think they're quite good.
I think warm up for squats. Just think adductors, hamstrings. Even if it's not hamstring focused, get those in. Like Andy said, that's really important. And then some kind of just quad movement, extension or flexion, just to get that blood flowing.
Again, I just like to pre-exhaust things as well. So the fact is, because I don't want to overly load any of my, this is a personal thing for me. I don't want to overly load my legs straight out first exercise.
Yeah.
I like to build into that, so I don't have to lift heavy.
Yeah. Also, when you guys were saying about box squat, I was going to say that's one of the ways I used to work on adding weight. Like, say, I did 100 kilos, good reps. And next time I want to try 110 or 120. And naturally, just mentally, I'm a bit scared.
Yeah.
Do a few sessions with that weight where I'd still do the 100 full on reps and full range of motion, and then add like a box squat with the heavier weights at the end, just to prepare my mind for weeks into getting into that weight. So I've found even clients, they find they can do a weight later on after a while, and then it's more like, why was I scared of it? And it's just that building up with slower movements, and box squat I find are very, very good when it comes to that. Just getting into that mindset that I can progress with the weight and I can still be able to do more reps, for hypertrophy or whatever strength. I think a lot of people can implement that to just add increased weight instead of always having to struggle to do a full, squat, and you're just not into it. You're scared. You're not really in that. It doesn't hurt to use it to take time and use it to build up. Yeah.
I mean, other moves I like are back foot elevated, front heel elevated split squats.
Yeah.
And then a back foot elevated split squat, but with a shorter stance to get quads. So yeah, if it is a quad focused day, I'd probably do those two. either like a sit squat or one of those variations. And like all of those are working quads in like a flexion. So I do like to do leg extensions because that's not working them at extension in their contracted position. And like, yeah.
I was gonna say, one exercise I hate that people do a lot is front squats.
Yeah.
Because there's so much to think about when you're doing it, like balancing a bar. It's like,
your mobility.
Your mobility. It's just like, right, I spent so much time now trying to balance this bar on my chest, get my hands in the right position, locking it in or crossing my arms and hoping it stays in perfect position and doesn't move as I'm squatting. It's just, for me, the most pointless exercise because I can't focus on the actual lift fully.
You're just you're thinking about, crap, I hope the weight doesn't fall.
Yeah.
You see people with the worst mobility here and you're like, that's just...
Yeah, and a lot of gym instructors seem to love getting people to do it. And I'm like,
there's so many movements out there.
If you're not a weightlifter, I think front squats are pointless, to be honest. It's where I guess we talk about specificity, that's the word. And you're trying to grow muscle. You're trying to move as efficient and effective as possible. This is not for it. It's just your delts and arms, and will probably tire before the muscle does. So if you're not weightlifting and prioritizing that mobility to be able to get into, like, I guess it's a push jerk or a jerk into a squat.
It's just like a pointless exercise. But I'll tell you on the flip side, what's a very underrated exercise that I love: sissy squats.
Yeah.
Love a sissy squat. Give me one of those sissy benches. Love them.
Yeah.
I finish up a lot of my quad focus sessions with a good sissy squat with some iso holds.
And I think that's good overall for like your knee health.
Yes.
Like the tendons as well. Yeah. Especially like if you're doing holds, those are really, really good.
Yeah, and there was one of the don't know which don't remember the actual coach, but just research, and they were showing how it also targets a bit of the psoas, that stretching when you're down, and it's a good. Was saying if you're, it's a strength therapist coach. I'll remember the handle, but it's like if you have feeling like, I guess your psoas is tight or you're feeling that pain, you can just iso hold in like sissy position, and it really gets your psoas. So when you're doing a sissy, it's a small muscle, but it can affect.
No, and we've spoke about it on there. I get really tight psoas because, and I think it's because of a bad knee, because it's always the opposite, where it connects to, the lower sort of back portion, pelvis across there. It is tight. So yeah, I get a lot of benefit from it, and it's a hard muscle to work.
Yeah,
deep, and it's hard to sort out.
Yeah, and I mean, okay, this sort of going off track a bit, but hip flexors, I think, is the one that people always are like, oh, they're tight, they must be, I've got to just stretch them, but they're often weak. So doing some form of hip flexor, because that will also get the psoas too. I would do in the beginning. But just something to think, if you're someone who's always complaining about hip flexors, like being tight, maybe go and strengthen them a bit. But sorry, that was just a little side note there.
And I think you mentioned something where I think it's a good one, just a tip for people where if you're targeting quads, it's more knee flexion. So I guess over toes mostly.
Yeah.
And if you're looking to get more of your glutes, take longer steps. So when you're doing, I guess, lunges and stuff like that, you can just use those two to keep in mind, depending on what you're trying to work. So
yeah. And again, if there's something you're trying to grow, you figure out the volume that works for you. Like for me, high volume does not grow my legs. Like I need to go heavy. It's just how it is. So you kind of have to figure that out for yourself, how that works. But just remember, I think some people can get, like Andy said in the beginning, get really carried away training legs. You want to be able to recover. So, I just do 2 sets. I keep my intensity pretty high. Perfect. You don't need to be doing hundreds.
I play around with it a lot, but it's like you said, when there's those days, don't know, maybe there's some carb in the training, add extra rice, do 2 extra sets, and the next day it's like, oh my gosh, am I catching a flu? And it's that
post-leg day flu is real.
And it's because I know, and I'm like, I can always go back and be like, those 2 sets, and then I did an extra CC set, and I know it's going to happen. If it doesn't happen, I'm like, ooh, okay, maybe I've broken into a new threshold or baseline or whatever. But most of the time, it's like Andy said, there's that one set you've done, it feels amazing. You're like, okay, the logbook says 2, but it's just a guide. So I'm going to do 2 extra.
Yeah, you just put yourself in.
With the time the next day, it's always like,
just manage that volume.
Yeah.
The amount of people I know who have DOMs up until the next leg day, and you're like, you're not really not effective. And we all used to, and it used to be the same when I was younger. It'd be like, oh yeah, I got DOMs. Or I only went away just before the last training session. And it was like a badge of honor, but it's like, well, probably because you're doing too much. Too much. Now, looking back, it's like...
It is. And I mean, I actually have to be really careful because, everyone thinks 3 days a week is like, taking a step back. But I have to be really careful, like, because it'll be lower focus, upper focus, lower focus. On that on the middle day, I have to keep the leg workout a lot lighter. Otherwise, there's just DOMs the whole week, which is not good. But into hamstrings, and I mean, I think hamstrings are interesting because, a lot of people don't deadlift and have great hamstrings. So don't feel you have to deadlift to get good hamstrings, and it depends what type of deadlift you do. If
that's the thing. There's no one exercise for everyone. You don't have to do anything. You don't have to squat to get good quads. You don't have to deadlift to get good hamstrings. You don't have to chest press to get good pecs. Everyone's different.
And
very true.
And I guess that's where most times a coach comes in well, because they, outside looking in, and they can tell you, okay, you've been doing back squats too long, or front squats or whatever, and you switch, and maybe you're doing hack squats and just CC squats, or maybe leg extension, and you find you're improving better than when you were thinking, I must barbell squat. So don't be afraid to change up.
People just can't deadlift for whatever reason. I personally love deadlifting. I'm more into conventional deadlifts right now, but in general, a conventional deadlift will be more leg overall rather than just like a glute or hamstring. If you're doing a Romanian deadlift, that is going to be a lot more glutes and hamstring. And then if you're doing a stiff leg deadlift, more hamstring still. But I would say that's quite advanced. And a lot of people kind of need to work their way up to doing that.
RDL, I think, is my go-to. I think generally,
I
see, I see a lot of women make one mistake with deadlifting. They only do some sort of sumo deadlift, and the range of motion is like 2 inches. It's like, and people don't realize you're doing, with that, you're only doing a tiny portion. It's like, and yes, you can lift more weight doing that. Well done. That's because your range of motion is 2 inches. Problem with deadlifts is everyone's different how they lift, and people get different benefits from it. Some people are very big leg drivers. I think we talked about this last week on back, and don't get so much from their back because they drive so hard into the ground with their legs. It's almost like a squat variation. And it's all down to where your shoulders are over the bar versus where the bar is. If your bar's against your shins but you're quite upright when you start your squat, it's all leg drive, and you've narrowed down your hip hinge element. Some people are all back and literally just yank it off the floor using back power, and which is for most people is unwise because you curve that back pretty good. But some people have got really strong backs, and it's probably not gonna hurt them. So it's important to know, one, a bit like squats, what type of deadlifter you are, to see which day if you really want to do deadlifts, which day you should pull it on. Like for me, I really like to use RDLs because I can really then focus on those glutes and hamstrings. Like I feel it. I think for me, the RDL is great for glutes. I can really feel it in the top portion of my hamstring and right in my glutes.
No, I agree. I think for most people, RDL is the way to go. And then again, you can now decide between, trap bars are amazing.
Great for your legs.
Don't need to, use a normal barbell. You can use dumbbells. There's so many variations. I like a single leg deadlift. Those are really good as well.
I like the split stance ones.
Both. Like split stance is nice because then you're not worried too much about your balance and you're still getting good benefits for single leg. But if you want to throw in some balance there, actually I do single leg, but I hold the
opposite side.
So there's no balance, but I really like that. So that's a big one.
I don't
I
enjoy
do. You do.
She makes me do the single leg. They're brutal, and it's.
I think you have to really reduce your weight.
It's also, you've got to relearn.
Yeah,
you got to relearn it. You're like, oh, I don't like it.
Yeah, because she's like, try it, and I'm like, in my head, I'm thinking, but there's more options that won't, destroy me. So they're a good challenge for a lot of people.
Good. And I think if you've never done like a single leg posterior chain movement, throw them in. Maybe start with that split stance, staggered stance one. With dumbbells or even the trap bar, it's really good. Then you can even do like deficit versions, which are really good. I'm very flexible with my hamstrings. So I'm short. So to get a proper range of motion for myself, I generally have to be elevated and do a deficit. So and there's so much that you can play around with those. And
my hamstrings are quite flexible, so I actually get a lot of benefit from a deficit one.
Yeah, that's what I was saying. You see a lot of people adding, the extra range of motion for deficits, and there's no reason to.
They don't even do it. That is the funniest thing that you see on Instagram, and then they don't even go below like the deficit.
No, I know. It's like I've seen that, and I've seen people who can't even touch their toes doing it. You're like,
so it's one of those. Don't just add stuff because you've seen it. There's a reason. Some people are just shorter or longer limbs. Or just more flexible. So
so you don't just do things because they look cool. Like have a like you can do phases of them and like have a phase where you do deficit work. So but don't just throw it in there.
I like I do think the trap bar is great for leg focused deadlifting.
Yeah.
You know, you do really work on that drive, and that is generally that'll get you a lot of quad activation as well.
Yeah.
Yeah, you squats, like
dumbbells are also
handstand.
underrated, you know.
Mm-hmm.
I think for hamstrings, you know, for deadlifting, because you can actually position those dumbbells in the perfect place.
Yeah.
Sometimes people, you know, way their body's built, trying to get a bar path perfect to their body's hard. So with a dumbbell, you can actually get a nice natural position of where your arms fall and where your body moves.
Yeah, you don't really have to bring them forward all the time. You
And
just
especially
do it side.
when you're pregnant, dumbbells are very good.
Yeah,
when you get bigger.
And it's easier to set up.
Oh, so much easier. Yeah.
It takes you ages to set up bars half the time. It's like,
Except when you use heavy ones. Like I remember, like, because then I'd like try and put them up on a bench, and it was quite tiring. But I really do. I think, yeah, they're very underrated. Everyone thinks again that it's the easy way out to use dumbbells, but go heavy. Like, go heavy, get straps. They're really great. They're really great.
The dumbbells are good.
They're good.
Dumbbell RDLs are great. As you said, you can use a bench to put the weight on. Your start position, and then just lower yourself down from there.
So try them. And then, of course, all kinds of hamstring curl machines, like the standing one is really good. I like that a lot. The lying one is good. Then you can do single leg variations. And if you've got the cool machines that can change the resistance, you know, is it harder, you know, at the top, if it's harder at the bottom, you've got so much to play around there. And again, like the quad.
I was going to say, when we're talking about laying versus sitting, I actually prefer for most people the seated hamstring curl, only because, you know, with the laying ones, too many people use their lower back.
Yes, that's true.
To generate it, and I can watch it in any gym. I watch it on countless YouTube videos every day of people doing hamstring curls, laying hamstring curls, and flipping like a bloody out of water orca, you know.
Yeah.
So, you know, it's a case of, you know, what I think for laying hamstring curls underrated is just a dumbbell one. You know, just a dumbbell hamstring curl. It's just can be a bit of a pain to set up.
It's a pain to set up,
but it does work your adductors as you try to hold them.
Yeah,
people try to go too heavy. People try to go too heavy with it, and I think that's half the issue. You know?
Yeah, that's true.
Yeah, I used to try go heavier, like I think the 30s.
Yeah, it was.
I just thought, you know what,
20, 25. Yeah, you can have, you know, max.
Yeah, after that, my lower back always, and then when I started using 20s, even 20s warm up with 10s, never any sort of lower back, and
because you can focus more on the actual hamstring rather than when it gets too heavy. And this is like laying hamstring curl machines. You know, you end up trying to get that weight moving, and half the time it's subconscious. You know, your back can just do it because it wants it to be moving.
And even
no,
I was going to say a lot of hamstring machines I noticed are not meant for tall people because
or short people.
I have to
average.
I put like a towel under my knees just so, you know, end range, the weights are not resetting or sort of like there's no tension, so I have to raise my knees and
your legs are way bent by the time it's getting any tension.
And then another towel or hoodie for the hips just to keep them on the bench because
good one.
Obviously
I always have to put roll the mat up or something like a yoga mat and
because it's not meant for shorter people and taller people. I don't know.
Half the time the bench is the wrong angle on the bench, you know.
Yeah,
I think that's half the issue, you know.
That's why seated always works. It's
the standing one as well.
And
standing is really good, but there's a lot less of them floating around. I think the seated one though you can really lock in.
Yeah, you feel secure.
Yeah, tall or short.
It's really good.
Easy
I agree.
To set up. Yeah.
I guess I need to end with glutes and speak controversial here. I really don't like hip thrusts. There's
for some people. You know what? Yeah, that's the only reason I tend not to program them for myself.
Okay.
I can't be bothered to set up a hip thrust unless there's a hip thrust machine in the gym.
That's what I'm
I'm
saying.
not interested.
Another useless buy next to the adductor one we need.
Yeah, I just think
it's just
there's
one machine for one movement.
and actually a lot of people don't fit in them well.
Oh, yeah.
But I would just say there's so many other better glute builders. People get upset with hip thrusts, like an RDL, a reverse lunge, a deficit reverse lunge.
Yeah, I agree with you. I think for actually building, they're not. They're a leg extension of the glute world.
Yeah, good one. True.
They are. You're not gonna build much from it. They're great for getting a glute pump.
Yeah, yeah.
But watching people do them, a lot of it's back because they put themselves so far on the bench anyway, or too far off. It's one of the two things. They're not really driving with throwing the whole body up. Just squeeze the the glutes to bring the bar up. For me, as I say, look, there's way better ones. RDL, even the what's it called? I want to say Romanian chair, but hamstring extension chair where you sort of lean over it and you can just hold the plate.
Yeah.
Again, it's like a supported hip hinge.
Yeah. Those are so good. Agreed.
And you re-squeeze your glutes on the top, as you bring it, lifting your body up. Don't go too heavy on weight. Start with body weight. These things, are probably better builders. Say RDL for me is probably the best glute builder.
Yeah.
For me, it's lunge variations. Those will get my glutes like nothing else, like heavy reverse lunges or a sort of a glute biased split squat. So make those the bread and butter of your glute building, and then have hip thrusts or glute kickbacks, glute medius kickbacks. Those are the icing up there. They shouldn't be the main course for building glute.
Yeah, they could be like, you could use them, like the end, or like what Andy said, they're like the leg extensions. You can use them to warm up, get blood in there. So
that's the thing. When you're programming, it's like, look, how are we programming your legs? There's a lot going on here. What's going to give you more bang for your buck?
Yep.
If you're just doing a whole leg day, be it a lower day, or if it's a total body workout, you're not going to bother putting in hip thrusts.
No.
If you're short on time, you're not going to bother with hip thrusts because it takes 20 minutes to set up. So you're better off putting in. I've got one client, she loves hip thrusts, so we keep them in for her. But she's always saying, "Can I do hip thrusts?" I'm like, all right, we'll stick them in. But they're not all that. For me, it's just one exercise. In a lower day though, you can probably get more benefit from sticking the RDL in or a lunging exercise because it will work the other things, without just like, let's say hip thrust can be very isolating, but so is a kickback.
Yeah.
It's like they're not going, we don't need to put them in really if you're short on time.
Yeah.
All the exercises are going to work your hamstrings and glutes together.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Agree. I do like a single leg for us just to work on imbalances, or a staggered stance one. I think those can be quite good. But again, like it wouldn't be my main move. Be like at the end, or even like an
activation. Yeah, an activation.
Yeah, I think I use them in the beginning with clients, but just very light, nothing too crazy.
Yeah. And I think a lot of people also have trouble mentally connecting to their glutes. Like they just can't feel them, or if you put your hand on your glute, you can move it. Some people just can't do that. So if that's you, like hip thrusts are going to do nothing. You're going to be using your quads, you're going to be using your hamstrings. So I think a lot of the time, like you need to build that kind of connection, but in the meantime, be doing those bread and butter movements.
Well, that's the thing, and I think you're really right there. I think this is where a lot of women fall into a trap. I think because they got big bum, they got good glute muscles. Half the time it's just you're depositing fat there, and actually you have little mind muscle connection with your glute. You can't tense it. You can't tense it. It's almost pointless for you. You can't squeeze and feel your bum closing together when you tense it. You're not doing it. And I think when we're looking at a full lower session, you got to prioritize. Decide what you're prioritizing. If you are prioritizing glutes, look at doing the warm ups we talked about, and then getting into a lunge variation RDL early on. After you warm up, because and then move down hamstrings and finish up with some quads just to tie up the legs, and then on your next leg session, flip it round and start with the quads.
Yeah, I think that's a very good tip because I was the same when I was younger. I thought all leg days must start with quads and end with calves. And I did that for, I'd say, maybe even 2-3 years of being like a beginner. And it's like you said, there's nothing wrong. I want to grow glutes, keep the glutes first. You're good with your quads, keep them last. Like you can switch it, like there's no rule. And
and if you want bigger calves, don't save them for the end of the session.
yeah.
Yeah. And that's something like most men do. And I still do it. I always forget to program it. At the end, I'm like, I forgot to do my calves. Quick, where's the calf machine?
Yeah, I try starting them on adducters.
Yeah,
Because,
you're very good. You always
Problem is, if I start with calves, what I often find is, like, I'm knackered. I'm like halfway through, I feel like, oh, everything's sort of tightened in my lower
even with adductors, it's like, in case you do, you have a logbook. Yeah, last time I did 80 for 12. And now you're getting to 8, and it's like, oh yeah, you just started the adductors, and it just feels different. Because that happened when I went to Smart Gym, and they had the machines, so I was able to just hit my seated calf superset with the abductors when there was no one. And then I get to the squat, and it's like, okay, this is humbling. This is
tired now, yeah. Everything.
Yeah, so yeah, play around with it. Don't be scared.
I think adductors is one thing people do forget. And actually, I was having this conversation yesterday at jiu-jitsu where I took Kaya. There's the one lad there who's really good at doing triangle, where you use your legs, get the head in there, work down and try chokes on between your thighs, essentially.
Yeah.
But you can never get him to tap out. And I said, it's because his legs are too skinny. I said, what happens is he's got no adductors.
Yeah.
So actually, there's a lot of gap in between his legs.
Can't squeeze and.
So when the head's there, there's nothing, pressing on the neck. I said, yeah, if he works on his adductors,
You'd believe.
There'd be a lot less space in that thing. So when he gets it on,
he just flexes his adductors, and
because people do, like, guys forget their adductors a lot.
Mm.
Women over focus on adduction as an exercise, but without realizing what it's truly doing. I think.
Yeah, they're doing it to slim their thighs.
Yeah, it's like and one of the funniest things I've seen is someone once was talking about thigh gaps, trying to have a thigh gap, and then I was just watching a video he posted of them doing adductions. I was like,
that's going to build them.
I know, it's like, well, I don't understand.
That's not going to work there.
So the opposite. So it is knowing, either getting a coach to help you, at least initially, understanding what your goal is and how best to get there, draw the roadmap when you can continue on. Because so many people just jump in and don't know. And there's a lot of trainers working in gyms who don't really care enough.
Yeah.
Yeah, that's a fact. They're just, let's just do these exercises. Yeah, because they're nice and easy.
Don't understand.
Let's do some front squats.
Yeah,
well, no, like most trainers don't even care about squats. They have you do every piece of machine that we don't have to set up. We can just put a pin in, and that's the reality. When you're working on gym floor all day and you're tired, and someone comes up and says, "Oh, can you take me for a session?" All right. And especially for gym instructors who they're not getting paid as a personal training session. It's like someone's induction into a gym. They really couldn't give a shit, and people have to understand that. You're just another person that's means they have to do some work, so they're probably a bit annoyed by it. Just walk around and chat to their mates.
Yeah, I remember working in the gym, and there were some days it did feel like that because a client would come. It's not a PT, and there's can you help me? And you just it just happens, and you're like, okay, so.
It's a Friday afternoon. You want to go home, and someone's wandering in. You're like,
they say I feel like some legs. It's start with the extension, hamstring curl, leg press, easy. It's like you said, just put pin and stand, just wait
count
for
to 10. You know.
it's just it's human nature. Sometimes the job is hard, or sometimes you find like they just don't care. So
yeah. So if you're really serious, get a coach. If you really want to, develop your legs, get a coach, because it isn't straightforward. It's not a simple thing.
Sadly not. Like for some people, you got to work really hard. Like I've always wanted
And
big.
you got to eat. And this is where a lot of people were trying to build legs in a deficit. And what you find is your weakest area shrinks most in a deficit. So hence what I was saying about feeding your legs when you're in a deficit if you want to keep your legs.
Yeah.
But the fact is, I see this with a lot of women saying, "Oh, I want more shapely legs, but I want to lose body fat." So, well, pick your poison.
Yeah.
Now, unless you're brand new to training, I always say this to people who haven't trained. I said that we will get some newbie gains, but at some point you're gonna have to decide what's more important: building glutes and legs, or losing body fat. And you have to have that choice.
Yeah, no, I think that's a very key point. Probably a good place for us to end. But hopefully that has been useful for you. And yeah, growing muscle is not easy. You have to be very strategic. You have to be on top of your nutrition and all of that other stuff.
Patient.
And patient, yeah. I mean, some people are genetic, just
those.
not freaks, but just like their legs are just great. Like Leon's butt just has a bubble butt. Doesn't do anything. Well, I mean, like he doesn't him. It's just genetic. Whereas the carbs,
I try avoid, and then carbs are just like, nope, we're gonna take everything further up.
Yeah. So for again, like for Leon, he'll maintain his legs on one session a week if he wanted, because he built them up to that pace. So there's a lot going on, as I'm sure you've picked up.
It's a very individual process. Yeah.
Well, this is the end of season 9. I can't believe that. So yeah, we will catch you all in season 10.